The sky above Tyrus 9 was dark with smoke. Explosions shook the ground, sending clouds of dust and debris into the air. The alien war machines moved like living shadows, their claws and weapons tearing through everything in their path. Soldiers ran across the battlefield, some shouting, some falling, but all desperate to survive. In the midst of this chaos, Ethan moved quickly and quietly. Ethan was not a hero by choice. He was a reconnaissance soldier, trained to observe, to hide, and to report. His squad had been sent to the far side of the planet to gather intelligence on the alien army, and now that mission had turned into a fight for survival. He could hear the alien sirens, the mechanical growls, and the screams of those caught in the middle. As he crept along a ruined ridge, Ethan's eyes caught a flicker of movement. At first he thought it was another soldier, but then he saw her, a young woman trapped beneath a fallen metal beam. She struggled, but the weight pinned her down. Around her, 2 alien scouts were closing in, their weapons glowing with energy. Ethan's first instinct was hesitation. He knew that interfering could mean death, but something in her eyes, the fear, the desperation, pushed him forward. He dropped down silently behind the nearest alien and grabbed a plasma knife from his belt. With a quick motion, he disabled the alien, then rolled to push the beam just enough to free the woman. "Quick, get up," he whispered, keeping low. The woman looked at him with wide eyes, her dark hair matted with dirt and blood. She nodded, trying to crawl away. Ethan grabbed her hand and pulled her up, just as another alien raised its weapon. He fired, and the creature fell with a hiss. They ran together across the battlefield, dodging fire and leaping over shattered structures. The woman stumbled, and Ethan caught her. "Can you walk?" he asked. I think so," she said, her voice trembling. "Thank you. I don't even know who you are." "Doesn't matter. Keep moving," Ethan said, his eyes scanning the horizon for threats. They reached the edge of a crater, where the alien patrols seemed less frequent. Ethan lowered her to the ground. "Stay low. Follow me," he said. "We need cover, and we need it fast." As they moved, the woman spoke quietly. "I should know how to get out of here. I've been trained for emergencies." Ethan glanced at her. There was something about the way she carried herself, even in fear. Her posture, the way she observed the environment, the calm in her eyes despite everything around her. "Then lead the way," he said, though he wondered what kind of training a young woman might have in the middle of a war zone. They ducked behind a collapsed tower and paused. Ethan's heart was pounding. He could feel the tension in the air, the danger all around. The woman pressed herself against the wall, her breathing steady but tense. "Name's Arya," she whispered. "Ethan," he replied.
"You hurt anywhere?"
She shook her head. "I'm fine, just shaken." He nodded. "Good, we need to keep moving. They'll be back soon." For hours, they moved carefully through the wreckage of the battlefield. Ethan led them through tunnels, over fallen bridges, and across open fields that were now littered with burned-out vehicles and the remains of alien machines. Each step was a risk, but Ethan's training and instinct kept them safe. Arya proved to be alert, helping him spot traps and ambushes, her sharp eyes catching details he might have missed. As night fell, they found a hidden cave among the rocky cliffs. It was dark and cold, but it was safe for now. Ethan helped Arya inside, then checked the entrance for any signs of pursuit. Seeing none, he sat down exhausted. "You saved me," Arya said softly, looking at him with something that seemed like awe. "I did what anyone would do," Ethan replied, though he didn't sound very convinced. "You get caught, you die. Simple." Arya shook her head. "No, not simple. You risked your life for me. Most people wouldn't." Ethan looked at her, surprised by her words. He wasn't used to gratitude, and certainly not in the middle of a war. "I'm not sure why I did it," he admitted. "Maybe. I just couldn't leave you there." They sat in silence for a moment, listening to the distant sounds of battle. The cave was small, but it offered a moment of peace, a pause in the endless chaos outside. Arya finally relaxed, leaning against the wall. "Ethan, I should tell you something," she said hesitantly. I'm not just anyone. I'm the heir to the kingdom of Letheria." Ethan froze. He had heard of Letheria, a peaceful and wealthy interstellar kingdom known for diplomacy and advanced technology. But he had no idea that someone he had just saved could be royalty. He stared at her, unable to speak. Arya continued, her voice quiet but firm. "I was on a diplomatic mission when our convoy was attacked. I never thought I would survive this." Ethan swallowed. You You're a princess? She nodded. Yes, but none of that matters now. What matters is surviving. I trust you. Because you saved me. That's all I know. Ethan felt a strange mix of pride and disbelief. He had saved a life, yes, but not just any life. He had rescued a future queen. The weight of that thought pressed on him, but he pushed it aside. Right now, the priority was staying alive. We'll get through this, he said firmly. One step at a time. I won't let them catch you. Arya nodded, her eyes shining with determination. I trust you, Ethan. That's all I can do. Outside the cave, the sounds of battle continued. The alien forces were relentless, their search teams combing the area for any survivors. But inside, a small fire burned, providing warmth and a sense of safety. For the first time since the attack, both Ethan and Arya allowed themselves a moment of rest. Ethan couldn't help but observe Arya. Despite her royal status, she was resourceful, brave, and smart. She didn't panic, didn't whine, and didn't rely on anyone to save her, except in that one critical moment. He felt respect for her growing, a respect that went beyond the battlefield. Arya, in turn, watched Ethan. She could see the calm in his eyes, the way he analyzed danger, the quick decisions that had kept them alive. He was more than a soldier. He was a protector, a strategist, and in that moment, a friend. They shared a simple meal, rationed from what Ethan carried, and spoke in low voices about everything but the battle. Ethan asked about Letheria, its people and its technology, careful not to reveal how much he knew. Arya spoke with pride and love for her home, her words painting a picture of a kingdom worth protecting. As sleep finally claimed them, Ethan kept watch, alert to every sound. Outside the battle raged, but inside the cave there was a fragile peace. Tomorrow would be another day of survival, another day of running, hiding, and fighting if necessary. But for now they had a brief moment of safety, a moment that neither would forget. Ethan didn't yet realize the full importance of his actions. He had saved a life, yes, but he had also changed the course of a kingdom's future. Arya, though grateful, did not press the matter. She only knew that Ethan's courage had given her a chance to live, and that chance was more valuable than anything else. Outside, the night was quiet, though the distant echoes of war reminded them both that the danger was far from over. Inside, they rested, two unlikely allies bound by circumstance and survival, unaware that their paths had been forever intertwined by a single act of bravery. And as Ethan drifted into a light sleep, he had no idea that the woman he had saved would one day rule a kingdom, and that he, a simple human soldier, had played a part in her destiny. The first light of dawn broke over the jagged cliffs of Tyrus 9, casting long shadows across the cratered landscape. Ethan stirred, stretching his sore muscles. He had barely slept, not from exhaustion alone, but from the constant awareness that danger could strike at any moment. Arya, still seated against the cave wall, was awake too, her eyes scanning the horizon. We can't stay here, Ethan said quietly. They'll keep searching. We need to move before they realize we escaped. Arya nodded. I know a place. A hidden route through the mountains. It's risky, but it's our best chance. Ethan helped her to her feet, and they began the slow, careful climb through rocky paths. The terrain was treacherous. Loose stones threatened to tumble with every step, and the air was thin, making every breath a struggle. But Ethan moved with steady precision, guiding Arya and watching the path ahead for any sign of danger. Tell me, Ethan said after a while. Why weren't you captured immediately? Surely your convoy had protection. Arya glanced at him, her expression tight. It was an ambush. The aliens knew our route. They were waiting. Most of my guards didn't survive. I barely made it. Her voice trembled, though her eyes remained focused. That's why I had to hide, to survive until someone found me. Ethan nodded, saying nothing. Words felt inadequate in a world where survival meant more than explanations. They moved in silence for several hours, communicating with gestures more than speech. Every rustle of wind or distant crash of metal made them tense, ready to react. By midday, they reached a narrow canyon. Its walls rose like towering cliffs on either side, a natural barrier from the alien patrols. Ethan led them through cautiously, keeping close to the shadowed side of the rock. You're skilled at moving quietly, Arya said quietly, breaking the silence. Ethan gave a small shrug. I've had a lot of practice. You learn to survive or you don't survive at all. She smiled faintly. I like that. Straightforward and practical, it's refreshing. For a moment the tension eased, but it was brief. Ahead, a patrol of alien scouts appeared, scanning the canyon floor. Ethan dropped to one knee, pulling Arya down beside him. "They have energy sensors," he whispered. "Stay perfectly still. Don't make a sound." The scouts passed, their mechanical eyes glowing as they swept the area. Ethan held his breath, feeling every second stretch into eternity. Finally, the aliens moved past them and Ethan let out a silent sigh of relief. "That was close," Arya said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Too close," Ethan replied. "We need to keep moving." "Not far now. I think I know a safe settlement nearby." As they walked, Arya began to ask questions about Ethan, his life, his home planet, why he joined the military. He answered cautiously, giving just enough detail to satisfy her curiosity without revealing vulnerabilities. She listened intently, intrigued by his simplicity and honesty, qualities rare in a world full of political games and hidden agendas. "You know," she said after a while, "if you weren't a soldier, you'd probably be a leader of some sort. You make decisions quickly, you protect others, and you keep calm when everything is falling apart. That's rare." Ethan chuckled softly. "Leadership? Not really my style, I just do what needs to be done." She looked at him with a quiet intensity. "Sometimes that's all leadership is, doing what needs to be done even when it's hard." They walked for hours, resting only briefly in small alcoves hidden from view. Each time they paused, Ethan would take the first watch, alert to any movement or sound. Arya, despite her status, never complained. She observed the environment, occasionally pointing out small dangers, a loose rock, a shift in the wind, the faint hum of distant machines. Her awareness reminded Ethan that she was not just anyone. There was a sharpness in her mind, a discipline that spoke of careful training and intelligence. By the late afternoon, the terrain became more dangerous. The path narrowed to a thin ridge with sheer drops on either side. A misstep could mean death. Ethan led cautiously, stepping ahead and testing the ground. "Ethan, I'm not afraid," Arya said softly. He glanced at her, surprised. "Not afraid? You should be. One wrong step and—" "I trust you," she interrupted. "I've seen what you can do. I believe you'll get us through this." Her words struck him, though he tried not to show it. Trust. In this world, trust was fragile, often fleeting. But here she was, placing her life entirely in his hands. Ethan felt a weight of responsibility heavier than any weapon he had carried. Night fell, and with it came a bitter cold. They found a small cave along the ridge, large enough for both to rest. Ethan gathered some dry brush and started a small fire, its glow casting dancing shadows on the walls. "You're good at survival," Arya said again, admiration in her tone. "I've had to be," Ethan replied. "You either adapt or you don't survive in a war zone like this." Arya nodded, wrapping herself in a thermal blanket he offered. "I'm glad I met you, Ethan. If it weren't for you—" Her voice trailed off, the unspoken meaning clear. Ethan felt a warmth he hadn't expected. It wasn't the fire. It wasn't just relief. It was something deeper, a connection forged in danger and trust. But he kept his focus on survival. Words of comfort, thoughts of what-ifs, could wait until the battle was over. They sat together in silence, the distant rumble of explosions still echoing through the mountains. The stars above were sharp and clear, and for a brief moment Ethan allowed himself to look up, to imagine a world beyond war and chaos. Arya watched him, sensing his thoughts. "Do you ever wonder, what's waiting for us if we survive?" she asked. Ethan considered this. "I try not to. Survival first. Everything else comes later," she smiled faintly. "Practical, like I said. But still, I hope we make it. Not just for me, but for the people counting on me, my kingdom." Her voice faltered, though her eyes remained determined. Ethan's respect for her grew. Here was someone of immense importance, a future queen. Yet she was grounded, practical, and courageous. She did not ask for special treatment. She did not demand respect. She acted and she survived. That made her extraordinary, not her title, not her birthright. The next day they continued their journey. The path led them to a river cutting through the valley. The water was cold, the current strong, but Ethan guided Arya carefully across. Midway, debris floated down the river, remnants of the battlefield upstream. Ethan grabbed her hand, steadying her against the pull of the current. "Almost there. Don't let go," he urged. She held tight, trusting him completely. They reached the opposite bank, breathless but safe. "Thank you," she said again. "Don't thank me yet," Ethan replied with a tired smile. "We still have a long way to go." By evening, they saw smoke rising in the distance, a settlement. It was small, but it offered hope. Ethan's instincts told him it was neutral territory, a place where humans and some alien refugees coexisted. It could be a place to rest, gather supplies, and plan their next move. As they approached cautiously, Arya whispered, "We might find allies there. People who can help us reach my kingdom safely." Ethan nodded. "Good, but we can't trust anyone completely. Not until we know for sure." They slipped into the settlement under the cover of darkness. Lanterns flickered along wooden pathways and quiet voices could be heard. The people seemed wary but not hostile. Ethan led Arya to a small corner where they could rest and watch. "This place, it feels safe," Arya said quietly. Ethan shook his head. "Safe is a relative term. We're still in enemy territory, but it's a start." As they prepared to rest, Ethan reflected on their journey. They had faced death countless times, relied on each other, and learned to trust in ways he had never imagined. He realized that survival wasn't just about fighting, it was about courage, trust, and sometimes the unexpected kindness of strangers. Arya looked at him, her expression a mix of gratitude and admiration. "Ethan, I don't know how to repay you." He shook his head. "No repayment needed. Just stay alive. That's enough for me." And so, for the first time since the battle began, they allowed themselves a moment of hope. The journey was far from over, but together, they had survived the impossible. Together, they would face whatever came next, because in the chaos of war, they had found trust, courage, and an unlikely partnership that might just change the fate of a kingdom. The settlement was quiet, but Ethan knew that quiet in a war zone never lasted long. Shadows moved between the buildings, and the distant hum of alien machines reminded him that danger was never far away. He and Arya stayed in a small, tucked-away room offered by a friendly villager who seemed to sense their urgency, but asked no questions. Arya sat by the window looking out at the faint lights of the settlement. "Ethan, I want to thank you again," she said softly. "If you hadn't come when you did, I don't know what would have happened." Ethan shrugged. "You survived because you fought. I just helped. That's all." She shook her head. "No, you did more than help. You risked your life. That matters more than you think." For a moment, they were silent. Outside, the settlement moved cautiously, aware that any slip could bring alien patrols back. Ethan studied Arya, noticing small details, the strength in her shoulders, the steady determination in her eyes, and the way she seemed calm even in danger. He realized that she was not just a survivor. She was a leader, trained to think ahead, to remain composed, and to inspire courage in others. The night passed with little incident, and by morning, Ethan decided it was time to gather information about the enemy movements. He slipped out quietly, leaving Arya behind in the room. Using the village's natural lookout points, he observed the surrounding hills, noting the positions of alien patrols and supply routes. Returning to Arya, he explained what he had learned. "They're moving faster than we expected. If we wait too long, they could surround your kingdom before we get there. We need to act." Arya listened carefully. "Then we move. But we need allies. My kingdom, it cannot face them alone." Ethan nodded. "I've seen humans fight before. We adapt, we survive, and we find ways to turn the odds in our favor. Maybe we can do that for your kingdom too." Together, they began to plan their next move. They decided to travel to a nearby outpost controlled by Arya's loyal allies. It would be dangerous, but it offered the best chance to rally forces and prepare for the journey back to the kingdom. The path to the outpost was treacherous. The terrain was rocky, and alien patrols were frequent. Ethan led carefully, using every skill he had learned to avoid detection. Arya stayed close, her own training helping them navigate traps, detect ambushes, and find hidden routes. During one tense crossing of a narrow ridge, an alien patrol appeared below them. Ethan froze, assessing the situation. "We need to move quietly, step lightly, follow my lead." Arya nodded. I can see a safer path. Follow me. Together they moved, balancing on the edge of the ridge, ignoring the fear that threatened to paralyze them. Each step was measured, precise. They reached a hidden ledge where the patrol could not see them. Ethan exhaled quietly, relief flooding through him. You're good at this, he said, impressed. Arya smiled faintly. I've had training. I've had to be ready for emergencies my whole life, but you're remarkable too. Calm under pressure, quick thinking. I can see why you survived. Ethan felt a strange warmth at her words, a connection that went beyond words. Here was a princess, someone destined to lead millions. Yet she valued him as a companion, as a trusted partner in survival. When they finally reached the outpost, they were greeted with suspicion. Guards aimed their weapons cautiously, scanning for signs of danger. Ethan stepped forward, showing Arya's insignia and explaining the situation briefly. The commander of the outpost, a tall human named Varric, studied Ethan carefully. You fought your way through the battlefield to bring her here? He asked. Ethan nodded. Yes, she's the future queen. The aliens are hunting her. We need to get her back safely, and we need allies for the journey. Varric's eyes widened, and he motioned them inside. You have courage, soldier. Not many could do what you did, but this is far from over. You'll need strategy, allies, and preparation. Inside the outpost, Arya spoke with her advisors, explaining the situation in detail. Ethan watched quietly, realizing the full weight of the responsibility she carried. Every decision she made affected not only her survival, but the survival of her people. Yet she remained calm, focused, and confident, inspiring those around her. Varric studied Ethan. You're human, yes? You faced the battlefield without hesitation. You might be exactly what we need. Ethan felt a mix of pride and uncertainty. He was just a soldier, trained to follow orders. He hadn't expected to be part of something so critical, to be trusted with the fate of a kingdom. Yet here he was, and he knew he couldn't refuse. As night fell over the outpost, Ethan and Arya prepared for the next stage of their journey. Supplies were packed, weapons checked, and plans reviewed. They would need to move quickly, strike when necessary, and avoid detection. The aliens were relentless, and any mistake could cost them their lives. Before leaving, Arya turned to Ethan. I need you to know, you saved more than me. You saved my kingdom, my people, and possibly the future. I cannot repay you for that. Ethan shook his head. No repayment, just survive. That's enough for me. They set out under the cover of darkness, moving quietly through the hills. The journey was long, exhausting, and filled with danger. But Ethan and Arya moved with a growing trust in each other, their partnership strengthened by necessity and mutual respect. At dawn, they reached a high plateau overlooking the alien forces. The view was grim. Machines and soldiers stretched across the horizon, moving like an endless wave. Ethan and Arya watched in silence, both aware that the coming confrontation would test everything they had learned. We can do this, Arya said quietly, her voice steady. We have to. For my people, for my kingdom, and for each other. Ethan nodded. We'll face them together. Humans have a way of surviving when it seems impossible. We'll find a way. For the first time, he felt a surge of confidence. He had saved a life once. Now he might help save a kingdom. And with Arya by his side, he felt that anything was possible. The journey ahead would be dangerous, and the stakes higher than ever. But Ethan and Arya were no longer just two individuals struggling to survive. They were a team, united by courage, trust, and a shared purpose that went beyond themselves. As they prepared to descend from the plateau and continue their journey, the distant rumble of alien machines reminded them that time was short. Every moment counted. Every decision mattered. And the choices they made now would shape not only their fate but the future of an entire kingdom. Ethan glanced at Arya, seeing the determination in her eyes. She was no longer just the girl he had saved. She was a leader, a symbol of hope and a force to be reckoned with. And he, just a human soldier, was ready to stand beside her, ready to fight, ready to survive, and ready to change the course of history. Together, they moved forward into the unknown, their bond stronger than ever, their courage tested but unwavering and their resolve unbroken. The real battle was coming and they would face it side by side. The first rays of light touched the plains outside the outpost, revealing the full scale of the alien army. Ethan and Arya stood on a ridge, overlooking the massive force that threatened to crush the kingdom of Letheria. Machines glinted in the sun, moving with precision, and alien soldiers marched in disciplined lines. The sight would have been terrifying to most, but Ethan's eyes were calm. He had seen worse and he had survived. Arya stood beside him, regal and composed, her royal insignia shining faintly in the morning light. Though she was young, her presence inspired loyalty and courage in those around her. Soldiers from the outpost, along with other human allies, gathered at her command, ready to fight for her kingdom. Ethan looked at her, seeing not just a princess, but a leader. "We can't face them head-on," he said. "They're too strong. We need strategy, surprise, and we need to use the terrain to our advantage." Arya nodded. "Do you trust me to follow your plan?" Ethan smirked. "I trust you to lead when it counts. Together, we can turn the tide." They began their preparations, setting traps along the approach, placing scouts in hidden positions, and coordinating signals for the attack. Every human soldier, every small force of aliens who had defected from the enemy ranks relied on their guidance. Ethan moved among them, offering advice, spotting weaknesses, and bolstering confidence. His calm under pressure and practical thinking reminded everyone that humans could survive and adapt in the most desperate situations. By midday, the alien forces advanced, unaware of the traps and strategies waiting for them. Ethan and Arya watched as their plan unfolded. Enemy machines fell into hidden pits. Some were slowed by concealed barriers, and scouting units were intercepted before they could report back. Every move Ethan had predicted worked, giving the defenders a crucial advantage. When the first wave of alien soldiers reached the valley, Ethan took position alongside Arya. They could see the fear in the eyes of the enemy, an unnatural hesitation as their machines faltered and their scouts were neutralized. Ethan felt a surge of determination. Humans might not be as strong as the aliens physically, but they had courage, ingenuity, and the will to survive. That was their greatest weapon. Arya raised her hand, signaling the defenders forward. Her voice rang out strong and commanding. "For Letheria, for our people." The soldiers charged, inspired by her courage. Ethan led the flanking maneuver, guiding a smaller group through hidden passes to attack the enemy's rear. The aliens were caught off guard, their formation disrupted, and the advantage shifted to the humans. During the chaos, Ethan noticed a group of alien commanders attempting to retreat and regroup. "Arya," he called, "we need to stop them from escaping. If they return, they'll bring reinforcements." She nodded, and together they led a strike team through the battle, moving with speed and precision. Arya demonstrated her own combat skills, taking down enemy officers with skill and grace. Ethan watched, impressed. She was not only a princess but a warrior, trained to act decisively under pressure. The tide of the battle turned. The aliens, disoriented and frustrated, began to falter. Ethan and Arya continued to coordinate attacks, inspiring the humans around them. Soldiers who had been terrified moments ago now fought with courage and hope. Each small victory strengthened morale, proving that determination and clever tactics could overcome even a technologically superior enemy. At one critical moment, an alien war machine broke through the human line, heading straight for the command center where Arya and Ethan were directing forces. Ethan didn't hesitate. He grabbed a nearby energy launcher and fired, targeting the machine's weak point. The blast hit perfectly and the machine collapsed, sparks flying. Arya and the soldiers around them cheered, their confidence renewed. As the sun began to set, the aliens, exhausted and disorganized, started retreating. The battle that had seemed impossible to win was now a victory, thanks to the courage, strategy, and quick thinking of the humans. Ethan and Arya watched as the remaining enemy forces fled, knowing that their kingdom was safe. For now. When the battle ended, the soldiers gathered to celebrate. Arya walked among them, praising their bravery and leadership. She turned to Ethan, her expression serious but full of gratitude. "You saved more than me, Ethan," she said. "You saved my kingdom, my people, and the hope for our future. I owe you everything." Ethan shook his head, feeling a mix of pride and humility. "I did what anyone would do. You were in danger, and I couldn't let that happen. That's all?" Arya smiled. "No, it's more than that. You thought, acted, and led when no one else could. You're more than a soldier, you're a hero." Despite his discomfort with praise, Ethan felt a warmth he hadn't expected. He had survived countless battles, faced countless dangers, and now he had helped save a kingdom. The realization settled over him like a quiet pride. The celebrations continued into the night. Ethan observed from a distance, watching Arya speak with her advisors, the soldiers, and the people of the kingdom. Her leadership was clear, and her gratitude towards him never wavered. He realized that he had not only saved her life but had become a part of something far larger than himself. After the celebrations, Arya found him on the ridge overlooking the battlefield. "Ethan," she said softly, "I want you to know that your courage doesn't go unnoticed. You risked everything for me, and now our people are safe because of you." He looked at her, trying to find the right words. I didn't do it for recognition. I did it because it was the right thing to do. But I'm glad it helped." Arya stepped closer. "It helped more than you know. I can trust you with my life, and that trust means more than anything." Ethan felt a strange bond with her, one forged in fire, danger, and survival. They had started as strangers thrown together by circumstance, but now they were allies, partners in a struggle that had changed both their lives forever. As night fell, the two of them sat quietly, looking at the stars above. The battle was won, but the responsibility of leadership and the protection of the kingdom remained. Yet for the first time since the conflict began, there was a sense of peace, of hope. Ethan realized that this journey had changed him. He had discovered strength he didn't know he had, courage that had been tested to its limits, and a sense of purpose that went beyond survival. And Arya, with her calm confidence and unwavering determination, had inspired him in ways he couldn't fully explain. "You know," Arya said quietly, "I never thought I'd survive this. And yet here we are." Ethan nodded. "And here we'll stay, as long as it takes." For that night, the kingdom was safe. For that night, two unlikely companions had proven that humans could survive, adapt, and triumph even against overwhelming odds. And for that night, Ethan and Arya shared a bond that would shape the future of Lytheria, a bond forged in courage, trust, and the shared experience of fighting together against impossible odds. When dawn came again, Ethan and Arya stood together at the edge of the kingdom, looking out at the horizon. The battle had been won, but the world was still vast and dangerous. Yet neither of them felt fear. They had survived, they had protected the innocent, and they had proven that human courage could overcome even the greatest challenges. Arya turned to Ethan, her eyes shining. "I will never forget what you did for me, for us. You saved me, and now you've saved my kingdom." Ethan smiled faintly, feeling the weight of her words. "I didn't know I was rescuing a future queen when I found you. I just did what felt right, but I'm glad I did." Arya placed a hand on his shoulder, a gesture of respect and trust. "You will always be a hero to me, Ethan, not just for what you did, but for who you are." And as they looked out together at the rising sun, the kingdom of Lytheria stood strong, alive and free thanks to courage, trust, and the human spirit that refused to yield, even in the face of impossible odds. Ethan and Arya had begun as strangers brought together by chance, but now they were allies, friends and partners in a story that would be remembered for generations. They had faced impossible danger, survived against overwhelming odds, and proven that humans, brave, resourceful, and unwavering, could truly change the course of destiny. Together, they turned back toward the kingdom, ready to rebuild, to protect, and to face whatever future challenges awaited. The battle had ended, but the journey of courage, leadership, and human spirit would continue. Stronger, wiser, and unbreakable.